Welcome to Choose the Nickel. I'm your host, George Bailey. My co-founder and technical support is the gorgeous Christina Bailey. This podcast is about giving kids financial freedom. We're interviewing fascinating people for their insights about how children learn to be financially savvy. Our guests come from diverse, sometimes conflicting schools of thought, and we love the opportunity to learn from them. We encourage all to weigh our guests' ideas on how to help children thrive, both financially and in general. We invite you to visit our website at www.choosethenickel.com, subscribe to our newsletter, and try out the things we are learning on the podcast. This week's episode is a bit different from the norm because we have not just one, but two guests, Mike Pulley and his daughter Izzy. Mike Pulley is a renovation aficionado and is the owner of Home by Design, a full concierge and project management service for home renovations. Mike has closed residential lease and sales transactions valued over $43 million, and he's an expert in historical tax credits, market knowledge, renovation planning, transaction management, and financial structuring. He is currently mentoring his 12-year-old daughter Izzy as she purchases her first rental property. Izzy Pulley took an interest in real estate at a young age and has been growing in her skills ever since. Don't let her youth fool you. Izzy is building a resume any professional would be proud of, and she loves learning to be financially savvy. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Pulley and Izzy Pulley. Mike Pulley, Izzy Pulley, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
It's a real pleasure, and I have to tell you, Izzy, as we come out the gate, that this is the very first time that we've had anybody under the age of 18. A matter of fact, it's probably the first time we've had anybody under the age of like 25 on our show. So you are to be congratulated.
Yay!
I love it too. I love having you in here. Now I'm going to ask Mike, I'm going to start off with you.
Okay.
I've just got a few questions. I want to set the context. Tell me about what you do that you are the most proud of in your professional life.
Kyle, in my professional life, you know, I've been in business for just over 10 years. My original business model came out of the gate as doing fix and flips, and then the market shifted. I shifted over to do the fixer-upper model. So like on the TV show Fixer-Upper, where they go out and they look at homes with prospective buyers and they sell them an idea and a vision of what could happen. That's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And then this past spring, my daughter turned to me and she's like, hey, can I invest in real estate?
Yeah.
So what's been really fun for me is being able to watch her have a passion for it. In the summers in the past, she would come and do budgets and numbers with me. I remember with her at a young age on my third fix and flip, I was installing a garbage disposal in the kitchen.
I can hear, Izzy, that you know this story or you've heard it many times.
I've heard it. I don't remember anything about it.
So
okay,
she
was
about 3 at the time. I got up and I looked all over the house for her and I could not find her. I was also missing a set of plumbing pliers. I started yelling throughout the house for her and I hear her and she's like saying in here, but kind of, you know, best 3-year-old voice.
Yeah, in here. And you're probably hearing it everywhere in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I walk into the bathroom and she had closed the cabinet and she's underneath the bathroom sink trying to do what I was doing in the kitchen.
Sweet.
And making it look like she's putting together the pipes and all that. It's great to watch the lives that we changed in the last decade.
Oh, yeah.
We're wrapping up our 175th house just this next week.
Yeah.
Being able to know that each job that we did provided 7 jobs. Each project that we did provided 7 jobs.
And it improved a home.
It took the derelict piece of junk home off of the streets and increased the values of the neighborhood. So
Sweet.
It's been really fun to watch that. So you have neighbors that are impacted. You have the families who own the homes that are impacted. You have the folks that worked on the house that are impacted. To go back to your question, what's my greatest accomplishment in that? It's being able to have my daughter see that.
Yeah.
Right? And see that there's something behind that.
I've said often on this program, I've acknowledged to everybody that I sell life insurance. That's my thing. I will never have your experience. I'm not going to shout around my house, in here. Oh, there's my daughter. She's filling out a life insurance application. she's quoting people. Oh, that's so sweet. I'm a little bit envious,
I
Mike.
quote people all the time.
Oh, but you do quote people on the house prices.
It's mainly because these people. They quote like movies. And
These people.
my
You mean
gosh,
your parents?
these people.
yes, these people. Yes.
That's awesome. So now you don't remember this though, but this passion has really just followed you. I think that's terrific. When was the first time that you do remember helping your dad and your mom with this business?
I don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah, I can remember another one.
Go ahead.
Spit it out. But I want you to think while your dad's talking about this, don't worry about the first thing that you can't remember. What is the first thing that you can remember? Go for it, Mike.
So when she was 4, we were doing an open house with an agent, and it was one of those beautiful, monstrous homes in Central West End. And it had been looked over, picked over, and passed over. And so what we did was we partnered with the agent to market it as a customizable home. So we did a big open house. We had about 90 real estate professionals come through, ranging from real estate agents to
Is it this? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I remember this one. Okay.
so real estate
Bing,
agents.
light bulb. Thank you, Mike.
So real estate agents to, lenders and whatnot. Isabel did a great job of, as people would come in, what would you do, Izzy, as people came in?
I would take their hand and then I'd just show them all around the house.
And what was great was she would be, wouldn't it be beautiful if you could do this to the kitchen? And
Nice.
Wouldn't it be great if you could do this and make it, your home? And it was so funny just for her to be able to drag 90 real estate professionals through a house, but she didn't do it one by one, but she led groups and it was really entertaining. And, we did a presentation. It was a big enough house to where we could kind of make an L shape and put a projector in the corner and go across the hall to the dining room on the other side and across to the formal living room off of the family room. We could fit 90 people in there and see a presentation. When the presentation was over, she had a basket, step upgrade from, like an Easter basket, a nice wicker basket. She held it in one hand and she held a stack of my business cards in the other. And she would not let them leave. Like she stood in the way of the door until they dropped a business card and took a business card.
Nice.
So it was great, So at the age of 4, she was doing that. I mean, we've got lots of stories of her doing stuff like this.
Excellent. So Izzy, back to you then. Do you recall that experience that got you involved in this?
That one I remember. I remember when I was little, I remember leading people up the stairs, cause upstairs it was like humongous. And, I'm like, wouldn't that be a great playroom right over there? Yeah, that's pretty much all I remember. And then there was this giant stained glass window that Mom really liked and that I really liked. I don't know if Dad liked it or not, but
it becomes part of the sale, right?
Yes.
Like, I like this. If you could entertain me a little bit more on this subject, what is it about real estate that gets you going, Izzy?
I just like seeing Dad design all of the things that he gets to create and how he can make something that was originally like horrible and awful and how people like disregard it as something like, oh, we can't fix that. And then Dad fixes it.
So it's the fixing, it's the making better.
Yes.
And watching your dad in this is the old, this is the new type of work, what have been the skills that you have picked up along the way?
Well, I know a lot more about business than I did when I was like 4, so that's a great achievement.
That is a great achievement.
I don't know. Dad, do you know?
Well, she said she learned a lot more about business. Business can be taught, right?
Yeah.
But from a young age to have her doing what she was doing, learning work ethic, learning to stand up in front of people and be in front of people. Like she has no problems speaking in front of people.
That to me is actually very, very impressive just sitting here. Very charming. You have that spirit and charisma. I think you're going to do really well.
Yay, that's good.
Well,
small celebration. Okay. Go ahead.
So for her 2-3 summers ago, I was sitting in my home office. She came in, she's like, what are you working on? It was during summer break. And I said, well, I'm working on this budget. And so she sat down with me and she's like, okay, what's this? What's this? And so we started going through everything. At the age of 7, Isabel and I watched on National Geographic how the Bugatti Veyron is made. It's a $2.5 million car.
Nice. Yeah. Beautiful car.
And when the show ends, she turns to me, she's like, I want that car. I learned a long time ago, don't put down anybody's dreams and aspirations, right?
Yeah.
If I can be a tool and resource to help her get there, let's do it. When we sat down and we started doing my budget for one of my projects, we got onto the topic of why it's important to understand your budgets, why it's important to do this and that and the other. Then we segued into the Bugatti, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do we need to do? What does she need to do to be able to afford a Bugatti?
Well, at the time I wanted to be a veterinarian, so, I'm like 9.
Sorry, I laugh.
I don't care.
Sorry to all the veterinarians out there. It's like, it's no offense, but you're not getting a Bugatti. Go ahead.
We did the math and we figured that if I was a veterinarian and I would own my own clinics, I'd have to own 5 of them.
Wow.
In order to get how much money every year?
So in order to make the car payments alone, the car payments, insurance, and maintenance, because the Bugatti, every 14,000 miles, you got to replace, every 5,000 miles, you got to replace the tires, and it's something like 14 or 17,000 every time you change the tires. We did the math, and we determined, okay, so 1 year car payment on a Bugatti and insurance is about $500,000.
Wow.
Right. And your average veterinarian clinic owner makes about $250,000.
Yeah.
So we determined, okay, well, you can buy a Bugatti, but are you going to put that, in a lean-to next to your house? Right? Are you going to live in this little
shack?
What's great about
live
this?
in a shack.
Yeah, a shack. Hey, if you have a shack and a Bugatti, I think you're living a pretty good life. But that aside, I think that what's great about that illustration is that when we teach our kids, not only are you going to buy this, but you are going to buy all of the associated, all of the associated expenses are things you need to account for. It makes me think of a story that my father-in-law about, how he wanted to keep pigeons. His father would ask him questions, well, like, okay, well, where are you going to keep the pigeons? What are you going to feed the pigeons? So it becomes more than, it's not just, I'm going to buy a Bugatti, but where are you going to keep the Bugatti? What are you going to feed the Bugatti?
What will I feed the Bugatti? Gas.
Gas,
I will
lots
feed
of gas.
you gas.
Lots of gas. Because it gets like 12 miles to the
12
gallon.
miles to the gallon?
Lots
yeah,
and
you're
lots
gonna,
of gas.
It's a hungry car. Yeah, it's hungry for insurance and hungry for gasoline.
It's hungry for my money.
Now, one of the other things, Izzy, that I'm aware that you've been doing, and I watched your mom, she posted a video on Facebook that I thought was really cool, that you do these internships. Tell me about these internships.
So, Dad sets up these internships for me to be able to meet powerful and successful women, and he's actually met almost all of them, right?
I've met all of them, yeah.
Yeah, he's met all of them, so he knows them. So, he sets up these internships, and then I get to have the opportunity to go meet with women who have been very successful in business. So, one time we went up to Chicago to go see your friend Megan.
Yep.
Your friend Megan.
And Megan does business and life coaching for top level executive women.
Got it.
And she also does other things too. Podcasts and not podcasts, but
Facebook
Live videos to help talk about how your network obviously increases your net worth, right? Because the people that you surround yourself with and you associate yourself with are the people that get you to that next level.
For you, what is it that you remember so much, Izzy, about this experience?
Well, it was really cool because she taught me a lot about how, associate yourself with the right people because they're going to help you the most. If you develop relationships with the right people, they will help your business expand and grow, and they'll want to take part more with your business. It was really great. And then so when we went over to her house, and while she was doing a Facebook Live, she also let me sleep on her couch too, which was great.
I bet you it was a nice couch, wasn't it?
It was.
Well, it was one of those things. We had just got back from being out of town and then turned around and drove up to Chicago. So,
Oh, brutal.
I was tired.
Oh, so are your parents go, go, go?
Kind of.
I ask this out of total personal self-interest, Izzy. I am a parent of 4. I've got 2 boys, 2 girls, and I'm a go, go, go parent. And I want to know, are my kids going to hate me for it? What are your thoughts?
Unless they're like my sister who loves spending time with her friends and is outside all the time instead of inside with her family and spending time with her family. Unless your kids are one of those kids, they'll want to spend time with you. So I would say, if you're a go parent, I would say at least take some time out of your schedule every day, or at least towards the end of the day to take some time to spend with your family, because that'll really help, because then your kids won't hate you.
Thank you. No, and hearing it from you, honestly, it's funny because we're so far, Mike and I are so far past that point that we forget what it's like. We want to pretend that we're the experts on what it's like to be 12 years old.
You're not. No, you're not.
We were.
We were.
You were.
No, we
You
totally were,
Once
man.
was a kid.
Still
up for debate.
We totally were. There's parts of me that's still a kid. I like to chill with the kids and whatnot. So this particular internship was fun. Do you have any other internships that jumped out to you as being very meaningful?
I got to go have an internship with Maxine Clark, the founder of Build-A-Bear. I got to sit in a meeting with her. We got to sit in a meeting with a lady who was running for a House of Representatives.
Wow.
And that was really cool. I also tried not to fall asleep in that one.
Look, when you have an entire day, right, devoted, and it gets tiring.
8-hour work day.
An 8-hour work day.
I mean, I was sitting in a really comfy chair, and the fan was blowing hot air on me, and it was like cold in the room, so of course I'm gonna fall asleep, like, on the table.
Wait. The fan was blowing cold air on you?
No, it was blowing hot air.
Oh, hot air. Yo, that is the worst.
In the summer.
My gosh. Yeah. Oh, man.
So I'm like falling asliep, and the lady next to me is like making sure I stay awake.
But hey, at least you know now that corporate life is hard.
That's why I'm not going to work in a corporate job.
I know, we're not in budget suits, you know.
But she gave me free books. It was great.
Fun. What kind of books? What were the books?
They're the March books. They're about like the civil rights in the 1960s.
Nice.
They're really cool books.
So like kind of history, like bravery, people taking a stand, doing what's right.
They're really good. And then we made my resume.
Good.
Yeah, that was like,
wow.
Made me feel really small.
Because, why?
Well, because at this point she had already done 5 other internships that summer.
Yeah.
Right? And she had done a couple internships the summer before. And so when they did her resume, they really wordsmithed the heck out of that stuff, right? So I looked at the resume and I'm like, man, I got a lot to do to catch up.
Well, what I thought was funny is this Wednesday at school is career day. So it's where we get to choose the area that we want to work in when we're older, or choose one of the areas that we want to work in. So we're going to go to this event on Wednesday, and we're going to learn about why people chose their jobs. Uh-huh. How did they get there? Was this the job that they always wanted to do? That kind of stuff. So we get to interview them, and then we just get to learn more about them.
I keep on hearing
about the job.
I keep on hearing this idea of interviewing people who are doing what you want to do as being this really great idea. It comes back. It's actually a theme that I want to remind listeners of. Like, this is a thing, and that it really seems to work. What was your big takeaway from that interview?
Which one?
Oh, good question.
Which one?
The Maxine Clark one.
She also kind of talked to me about how business can get really tough. I read her book, The Bare Necessities, and
Bare Essentials of Business.
Bare, whatever. I thought of the song. Oh well. Yeah, like the book, it basically talked about like all she said to me. It was like how business is important, how you should manage to that, and how to make sure that your customers are happy along with how your workers should be happy. Basically, should just be a good environment to work in. And it was great. That's great.
I'm going to ask you a very difficult question. And I don't know if you'll have a ready answer for me.
Okay.
But, you know, so I'm going to be honest with you. There are a lot of times when kind of parents jump in and they start really doing things for kids, parents and adults in general. And so the kids come away not having actually learned anything. So I'm thinking of the resume experience. In this case, it wasn't your parent who jumped in, but it was another adult who essentially crafted for you an awesome resume, probably better than my resume right now. Maybe better than your dad's. Do you remember what it was you were supposed to be learning during that exercise?
Other than that, your resume is super important for your next job, but...
That's true. That's a start.
Yeah, because you got to have like a letter of recommendation is what some jobs will require for you to have. And then there's specific things that each job wants. It's called the value of experience.
That was epic. Okay. So, next question.
Okay.
You've been working with your mom and your dad, doing, I think, some pretty phenomenal things, getting some really good experience. In what ways has this brought you closer to them?
I think it's just the joy of being able to work with them and like see what they do every day, because when I get to see all the drama and stuff that they have to go through every day, it just brings me closer in a way that I can understand them more, like what's going on in their lives.
And why is that so important to you, that you want to be able to understand your parents more?
Because I care about people, and my parents are the two most people other than my sister that I care a lot about. So when they're sad, yeah, it's not good, because then when they get stressed out, then I get stressed out because I don't know what they're stressed out about. So then it just doubles the stress in the house, and then yeah, it's not very fun. But
at least you know the reason why.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they don't always tell me the reason, which is probably a good thing, because then that stresses me out, which then stresses them out.
And we do have to remind her that she is a kid.
And then,
right? And we want her to enjoy life. She'll have plenty of time to stress about the stuff we stress about.
Okay.
Right?
I like that line, and I'm going to ask you a question, Mike.
Okay.
Where is that line for you?
Money and schedules and things like that. I think in general, a lot of stuff around business and life and work is a very taboo conversation that parents don't have with their kids.
That's Mom's favorite game, by the way.
Right?
Taboo. Okay.
But, and I feel like most parents, just as I'm sure that mine felt, it's a taboo thing, right? Mm-hmm. Just as you've told me that you were never taught, the value of money, budgeting, financing, things like that. I think over the decades, it's just been such a taboo thing. We don't talk about it, right? And we don't talk about it, especially with our kids, right? And especially in our relationships, we don't talk, and that's why we have so many issues here in America, is we don't talk about the elephant in the room. And so I think, yes, there's things that we don't share with her because she's 12. She doesn't need to know everything. There's certain things and issues that we come across.
Give me examples though of types. And you don't have to say them right here, because obviously she's in the room, and that would be, but the types of things where
in owning your own business, everybody else gets paid before you do. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what, everybody else gets paid before you do. And even those people that get paid before you do don't even feel like they're getting paid, Yeah. Like you finally get them money and they're like, well, this was due like a month ago. I'm like, dude, you literally have everything I've got. Right? In those situations, it's a tough conversation to have with your kids. Like, I know you want to do this and we can't do this because of this. And I know you want to go on this trip, or I know you want this toy, or I know you want to spend time with your friends to go out and do this. We're not in a position to do that right now. And those are those conversations that are the tough parts, right? Because and we're very fortunate where with Isabel we can have those conversations, right? That in turn stresses her, not probably so much as some of the other stressors that my wife and I face through business. And, just various aspects of business come up. And I think it's just important to realize that there are some things you can share. There are some things you probably shouldn't share.
Yeah.
It's being able to have your children understand that the things that matter most are the things that we're going to discuss. Right. Yeah. So those other trivial.
I think it's also really important to assure them there will come a time in which I'm willing to share basically anything. Mm-hmm. So it's not a matter of like, this is always forbidden. Mm-hmm. This is always a no game, but rather like, I want to prepare you in steps. Mm-hmm. What makes me happy to see is that it looks like you are being prepared in steps. Now, one of the games that your dad has talked about a lot that he really loves and that apparently you're really good at is Cash Flow or Rat Race. What's the proper name for it?
Cash Flow.
Cash Flow.
Yeah.
This is the Robert Kiyosaki game that was talked about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. When did you start playing that? Tell me a little bit about kind of your experience with that game.
Was it when I was 9 or 10?
No, it was before that. No. So right after we watched that special on how the Bugatti Veyron is made, she's like, what do I need to do to get it? Right? And I'm like, okay, go read this book and go read this book and go read this book.
I hate reading business books, by the way.
Really? Okay. This is good. Well, I'm going to come back to that, but go ahead.
But she still came back to me and she's like, okay, I read it, now what? And so then we started playing Cash Flow and she was 7. And when she was 9, I mean, she was wiping the floor with us. I mean, there was one day we played, we were using the proper amount of dice, because when we play our once a month event with our real estate investment group, we use a few extra dice just to speed the game up. But we use the proper amount, we played by the rules, everything, and she was out of the rat race in like 15 minutes.
That doesn't happen anymore. It's really sad, because Dad has another game that they play on their cash flow nights. It's called, I just forgot what it's called.
Velocity Banking?
Yeah, that. Velocity Banking. And so I really want to play that, but I just can't seem to get out of the rat race fast enough. And I'm like, can the game move faster, please?
But you've practiced. What is it that you like about that game so much?
Well, one, that I get to win.
We all tend to like things that we're good at, you know. I
like winning.
So, yeah.
It's really fun because you get to learn finance, but it's in a fun way. It's not in like you have to sit through like a bajillion hour long class. So
what is it?
Taking notes on a tiny piece of paper.
What is it like when you sit down and play a game like Life or Monopoly? Is it still fun, or are you kind of like, ugh?
Life is fun.
Play.
I hate Monopoly.
Why do you hate Monopoly?
It takes forever. It's so much longer. Like, it's just not as fun. And probably lots of people out there are going to completely disagree with me. But
well, in Monopoly is designed, put it this way, my wife and I played Monopoly our very first Christmas, and she still will never play Monopoly with me.
Isn't that the band Monopoly?
No,
or is that
just
regular Monopoly?
Regular Monopoly. And, cause I ended up owning almost everything, and she kept landing on everything, and it kept making her bankrupt. And, Cash Flow 101 is not about that. It's not about destroying other people. It's about creating opportunities for yourself and collaborating with other people, which is life, right?
Yeah, that's a much better moral value where it's just like, look, you're not out there, kid, to kill everybody,
But even the game of life, we play that, cause our youngest likes to play it. And even that one, sometimes when it comes down to the salary card, right?
Yeah.
You can take that from somebody else if you land on one of the squares.
That's the part that makes me mad about the game. I'm like, I have a really good salary. Can I just keep it?
And of course, our 7-year-old, she is as competitive as her mom and dad, right? And so because of that, and she's just like, that's mine.
It runs in the family. It's just like, this is mine now.
We've talked a little bit about how this makes you feel, how this draws you closer to your mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
I have not talked as much about what are some of the things that are challenging when your mom and dad are trying to teach you these things. I'm sure there are times when you're like, what might some of those things be? And Mike, I'm going to ask you to completely stay out of this part of the conversation. Go ahead.
What? No!
I only laughed because we had the conversation on the way down here. But she's already mentioned,
Yeah.
Wait, we did? What?
Something that you don't want to do tonight.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to do a check-in for Renatus, because that's never fun, because I can't work fast enough.
What is check-in?
Check-in is where you basically just sign people in, but you have to, unless they're already registered, unless they've already RSVP'd, then you gotta, type in their information, type in their phone number, their email, their name. It takes me forever, and then there's just, this humongous long line of people, and it just keeps multiplying, and I'm like, I don't have time for this!
So now, in my home, we have a way of disciplining our kids when they're not doing the right thing. I'll say that's one. It's called 1, 2, 3 Magic, based on a book of the same name, where you say that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, go take however many minutes out in your room that you are old. So if you're 12, you'd take 12 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And so I know that when I say that's 1, that's 2, my kids are like, or even other cliches that I'll say are, I never say this one to my kids, but stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. Do your mom and dad have any cliches, things that they say?
No.
Yes.
I can't remember any. I know,
when we want you to pay attention, what do we say?
Focus, Farkas.
Yes.
Say it again.
Focus, Farkas.
Focus, Farkas. Okay.
So cause Dad had
when I was on my mission for our church, I had a missionary companion who did not focus very well, and his last name was Farkas, and so we always said Focus, Farkas.
There were many jokes from his mission. It's hilarious.
Gotcha. Okay, got it. Outside of that, we've talked a lot about you in business. How about, Izzy, you and play? And I want to follow that up with Mike, you and play.
Reading.
But you hate business books, and you said that earlier.
I hate reading business books. I think it's just the way that they're written, that there's no exciting things happen. If they can make it written more like how, like, say, a realistic fiction book is written, or like how a fantasy book is written, then I could read it. Obviously, you don't have to make stuff up, but if you could explain it in the way that those kind of books do, I would be able to understand it more, because when I just read a business book, in my mind, it's basically just a mindset that I have where it's like, this is a business book. This is all about business. This is going to be so fun to read, isn't it? And so I'm like reading and I'm like, I have read this same paragraph about 50 times now.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't even taken in a word of it, so.
So note to business authors, more machine guns, more unicorns.
No.
Okay.
You don't have to mix, okay. You don't have to mix stuff up, but it's like if you could teach the lesson in a way that makes it fun for kids to learn. Yeah, like in a story. If you put it into a story, I think kids would learn better that way.
But there are books that you do really love reading. What are those?
Harry Potter. I've already read it like 20 times. So, Percy Jackson, fantasy books, so like Five Kingdoms, Fablehaven.
Yeah.
Anything like that. I don't really like reading realistic fiction stories as much, unless they're like the old ones, because I really like those ones. One of my favorites is Wonder, because it's perfectly based about how like society thinks of people who are different when they're really not that different. They look different. They might act different from you, but they're human too. They're not a machine. They're not alien. They're human.
Good. I like that. Thank you. And Mike, what about you?
I love playing hockey, and ironically, I haven't done that in a long time.
He skates, I
do, but I love spending time with my family. I do.
That's good.
You know, we set aside, I would say, more than the average American family sets aside.
I still don't get enough family time, I don't think, because, school gives me a billion hours of homework.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so it's not Dad's fault, it's the
school's fault.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I already have to sit through 7 hours of school, and yet you're giving me like 5 more hours of homework.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, so, that's frustrating for us because we do love to spend time. In fact, my wife and I, we deal with a real estate investment educational company called Renatus, and we kind of alluded to the fact of, well, maybe we could just home teach our kids and throw them into Renatus because they're going to learn everything about business and life from there.
Yeah, Mom's
and
like
more than they would probably at school.
Nice.
Real life applicable things. For me, family, spending time with family, getting to meet people. I love getting to meet people, get to know them, get to learn about them, how I can help them succeed as well and make a difference in their life and in the world around them.
The irony of that comparison, I had missed that idea that she's spending so much time on school.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we all acknowledge, all of us, and Izzy, I'm going to tell you right now, all adults know it, that school, some parents are going to hate me for saying this, is a waste of time.
It is. I'm going to agree with you on that because you learn a lot. Like
all of my teacher friends are like gnashing their teeth right now.
Well,
Sorry.
because it's like you learn a lot at school, but you don't give kids enough time to like be with their friends or like spend time with their family or actually be able to get their work done.
Experiences,
Yeah, and it's like they can't go off and experience the world if they're just like stuck at a desk all day.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a side thing here. A lot of people, once I explained to them about Isabel and her internships, she's just a week and a half ago started negotiating her first rental property. I have a plan laid out following her life insurance plan.
Nobody believes me when I tell them about it, by the way, but it's true.
We have this plan laid out, and the objective is help her achieve this plan by acquiring so many houses a year.
Yeah.
And she doesn't need that income to live off of, so utilizing that money in her own business to then buy more houses and use that as a tool and resource to where by the time she's 35 and using one of our trainings called Velocity Banking and using family banking or infinite banking or with life insurance policies as well, to where by the time she's 35, she can own almost 2,300 houses, with a value of $130, $140 million and a passive rental income of $3.8 million at the age of 35. And people are like, oh, that's just pie in the sky. I'm like, but even if she missed the mark by 90%,
Yeah.
Even if she missed the mark by 90% and only owns 230 houses and only has a net worth of $14 million and only is bringing in $380,000. Okay, let's just say she misses...
Still a lot more than most 35-years-olds are making,
And let's just say she misses the mark by 95%, right? So now she owns 115 houses and a net worth of $7 million and a passive income of $190,000.
Again, still making more than most 35-year-olds.
At the age of 35, and that's still nothing to cry at. Now, my goal is make sure she hits it. Why? That's my retirement plan.
I am his retirement plan. I don't know about...
At least your dad's being honest about it.
I don't know about Stella, because by the time I'm 35, she's going to be 31.
Now I'm going to...
Close. And her life insurance policy is going to be worth more than mine.
Yeah, I mean, and so people ask, like, okay, what will this look like for her, right? I don't know. For me, it's being able to give her the tools and resources. And going back to education, if we follow the plan to a T, by the time she's 21 graduating from college roundabouts, she'll be making $250,000 a year with 100 properties. And she could stop there. Right? She could totally stop there and be well off, or she could continue forward and only take a $60,000
and then
pay.
teach it to my kids, and then have them teach it to their kids, and then so on and so forth.
But people ask...
But I agree with that, and I think that that's really important that you, Izzy, know that this is something that you're not just going to learn, but that you're going to perpetuate.
By that point, does she even need to go to college?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen JP Sears or not, the spiritual guru on Facebook.
Yeah, totally.
Hilarious.
Did you guys go to his thing the other night?
We did, yeah. He was in town. But he has this video on education, and he talks a lot about it. And he talks, pretty much he makes fun of it, right? Yeah. And somehow having a degree sets you apart, but because everybody else has it, it doesn't set you apart. And yet, it's...
Well, apparently only 30% of Americans have gone to college.
But, it's one of those things unless you're going to become a veterinarian like Isabel was planning on, or if you're planning on being a doctor or an attorney, anything that's like special. If you're going to just be a marketing person or a business person, you could learn so much more. And that's why, her, she might have fallen asleep in some of her stuff, but she got a lot of information out of those, right? And being surrounded by people who have that sense and that savvy and who are willing to help her. So by the time she's 18 and she's been able to do these internships with these amazing, powerful women, what will that do for her life?
Yeah.
Now, right? And education is kind of a moot point. Unless she is going in for a particular study.
Now, we are getting to the end, and I want to wrap it up, but not before I at least lay out at least some sort of a defensive education. I have a couple degrees. No, I have a couple degrees, and I want to say the value. And the value, I think, is in the way that it forces you to think and relate to other people. Mm-hmm. And there's power in having had a course in, a humanities course and stuff like that. So I don't want people gnashing their teeth too much. And when I run for president one day, I don't want to be quoted out of context as being kids don't go to school and it's terrible. My political opponents are going to smear me left and right with that. And so I can't have that out there. But, I think there is a defense, and I think that it's in the kind of relatability and there's joy in learning things. But at the same time, I do think that we have not adapted very well to the professional educational balance, and kids just don't have that work experience like you get right now, like you're getting right now. I think that that's great. Go ahead.
Well, so being able to have these skills in life is really important, but yes, going to school is too. You learn a lot, but it still takes up a lot of time. John Green, in one of his YouTube videos that my social studies teacher showed me, he's like, "You're stupid, I'm stupid, we're all here on the earth to get less stupid." And it makes sense because it's like, we still don't know a whole lot of things, but we're gonna learn how to know more things, but there's still gonna be a lot more stuff that we won't know.
And I don't know if this will comfort you or not, but when you become a big person like us, I don't think that you know substantially more in terms of all there is to know the universe.
You're not going to know everything in the universe, because I don't know if that technically be possible yet, because they haven't quite developed the technology to do that yet. Lots of it is also just like, Mom nags me because I don't apparently, I used to have a lot of common sense and now apparently I don't. So she was like, common sense, Izzy, common sense. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, see, that's one of those things your parents say that irritates you. Okay,
yes,
gotcha.
There we go.
I knew we'd find one.
It.
I knew we'd find one.
Found it.
I have one more question, and it's for both of you, and I'm gonna let Mike, I'm gonna let you go first. Izzy, I'm gonna let you take us out.
Okay.
Mike, what is your favorite charitable cause? And the reason why I ask this question, Izzy, and I ask it of everybody at the end of every show, is because I want to put money in context. If we're not doing good, I think we've missed something really big. So that being said, Mike.
There's so many charitable causes out there. When I got home from my mission, I went into college for nonprofit administration. So I worked in the nonprofit sector for 7 years. So I got to experience that side. And now being in the business world, I get to experience it on a different side. Just last week, I was in Chicago for a fundraiser. At this fundraiser, it was top amazing business owners and entrepreneurs across the United States. Some celebrities were there, and they rolled out a red carpet for these kids in Southside Chicago that have been experiencing massive amounts of gang violence, drugs.
Was this the Power of We Symposium
the
by
Power of We
chance?
Symposium, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've had Lauren Harris Michaels
yes.
and Michelle Malo on this podcast before. So yeah, I know all about this.
So I was up there last week for that, and it was really, during the breaks, they wanted us to, all of us that have businesses, all of us that were there, go around and just meet the youth that were there. So some of these youth, some of them were like, why am I here? And then some were just totally into it, right? And some, some of the speakers totally related to them, some didn't, some they got nuggets out of. And so I came up to this group of young men, and I had talked to them before we started, and I introduced myself, got to know them a little bit.
When was this?
This was in Chicago last week when I was up in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Got to talk to one of these youth. He's 17. And I'm just standing there. I have my hand on the chair in front of him. And it was during lunch break. And he's like, hey, you're the real estate guy. Let me come meet some of my friends. And so I go over and meet some of his friends. And he wanted to do real estate. He said to me, he goes, who do you think has the most money in this room? And I was just like, oh, hold on. So I grabbed the chair, turned it around, sat down in front of him. And, I told him, I was like, look, who has the most money in here doesn't matter. And he just kind of looked at me like puzzled. And I'm sitting there just kind of like face to face with him. Like,
who's the most successful?
No, so it was more of a context of, it's not so much who has the most money, right? Because I went into the subject of the year I found out the most about myself was the year I made the least amount of money, right? It was something like $12,000. That was before adjusted gross income. So
that was a great year.
So technically, and Isabel was only a year old or so.
Yeah.
So it was
like I said, that was a great year for you guys.
And I said, look, money is, and I had him try and fill in the blank, and he's like, power, and threw in like all these other adjectives, right? And I said, what is money considered? And he's just like, and I could tell he stumped him, like, can I fill it in for you? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, the root of all evil? He goes, yeah, I've heard that. And I was like, is it? He goes, yeah, I could see that. And I was like, no. It's like, look, money is an enhancer of who you are. It's an amplifier. That's all it is. Mm-hmm. If you are a poor jerk and you come into money, you're going to be the biggest jerk. That's the richest jerk, right?
Yeah.
If the biggest jerk that ever lives. Great book title.
Yeah, but if you're on the flip side of that, if you're an incredibly giving, wealthy person and you lose everything, you now have an even greater understanding of those who struggle, right?
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate gift.
Yeah, you have this context, right? It's an amplifier of who you are. It's not really, if money is the root of all evil and you consider people evil because of they have money, well, it's just because of who they were before they have money, right? And I said, look, do you personally like to be around people who are jerks and mean to you? He's like, no. And I said, do you like to be around people that are nice and helpful to you? He goes, yeah, I definitely like that. I said, what matters most isn't who has the most money in here. I said, what matters most is who you are and who you will become. And the fact that you could come from nothing, like Lauren, right?
Yeah.
And come from the streets like Lauren has,
22 foster families. Yeah.
Amazing, right? And
Yeah.
to make it to where Lauren is, who's putting on this Power of We symposium.
It's not about like how much money you have. It's your experience.
Well, yeah. So it's totally about experience and giving back to others. And I said, look, what matters most is these people in this room have so much influence to where if you can prove to them that you're a person of value and substance, good substance, they will help you achieve whatever goal you want.
Yes.
Right? And
Associating yourself with the right people.
Yeah, associating yourself with the right people is, going back to our friend Megan, network is your net worth, and, putting yourself around those people. And so, to go back to your question, what is one of the charities that I look at? I look at what can generate that person to become a better person. Right?
Thank you.
What events can do that?
That's a great thought. In that same spirit, Izzy, what about you? If you could think of a charitable cause to which you would love to give, what is that?
Since I've been little, whenever I see a homeless person on the street, I feel really bad. So what I've always wanted to do is to basically buy an apartment building and set it up for local homeless people so they can come in, they can live there until they can get their money and get back on their feet. But the only problem that my mom introduced to me is that, how are you going to fund it?
Yeah.
I have no idea how I'm going to do that yet.
Yeah, you do.
I do?
Buy a bunch of rental properties.
Okay. Well,
so when you're 35, then you can just start giving away houses. You can be like Oprah, you get a house, you get a house, you get a house.
Everybody gets a house.
Yeah.
I'll go to Chicago and it's like underneath all the bridges, there's like tents full of homeless people, and it makes me really sad because of money. Money isn't everything, but the world makes it seem like money is everything. Money is what buys you a home, a house, food, helps you take care of your family and all that. But what matters most is that with money is basically, it's a privilege to have, because not a lot of people have. So you should be grateful that you have that privilege to be able to have more money than others. So it depends on how you use it, because that privilege can easily just be taken away. Like somebody could just like steal your money. The government could take it and all of your taxes. So like you could have to spend twice as many taxes as you would. So yeah.
I agree. I think that it's wonderful to be able to use it to help people. I love that. I think that that's a terrific cause. Both Mike and Izzy, I really want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Everybody else, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the interview and found useful ideas about things you can do with your kids. Be sure to check the show notes at www.choosethenickel.com for links to names, books, and other resources we discussed in today's show. Also, please subscribe to our newsletter and visit our contact page where you can give us feedback. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube, and you can follow Choose the Nickel on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We invite you to share Choose the Nickel with your friends and join us in our quest to teach kids financial freedom.